Hey y'all, it's your girl Millie Chan, and I'm here with Ebony, the Fly Aunt Cook, and our special guest is back again, Alice Ward. She's my soror. She is an LPC. She has 15 years in the game. Last week she talked about trauma bonding. we we talked about just loving ourselves, and at the end of it, we kind of got into self love, right? Self care, and self love. So that's what we will be touching on tonight. Hello, Ebony. Thank you for being here.
You know I love to be here on the TV.
Hello, Alice. Thank you
What's
so
up
much for
with
being here.
it?
I love it, and I'm telling you, the people love Alice because she's not. Like I don't know if people thought it would be like a stiff situation, but Alice brings it to everybody's level in real talk. So we really appreciate you being that real, right?
Yeah.
It was.
So
It feels like it feels like it's a conversation and it's an open
yeah,
dialogue. It's just
yes,
not her saying this. You write it down and implement it. It's a really good exchange of ideas and thoughts,
right.
and people can and it's downloadable and it's relatable, and it gives the conversation the range that it needs so people can ultimately take the tools and heal.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we want to at the end of this, we want to get to somewhere where we can heal and we can have some tools and we can recognize red flags, yellow flags, and all of that. So tonight what we're talking about is self-love. So I'm going to just read y'all a little definition, give y'all a little foundation, and we're going to go from there. Self-love is a state of appreciation for oneself that grows from an action that supports our physical, psychological, and spiritual growth. Having high regard for your own well being and happiness, self love means taking care of you, your own needs, and not sacrificing your well being to please others. And I really think that last part is where we all kind of have something in common.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone sacrifices something for others. I don't feel like everybody is getting everything out of their relationship, whether it be with your partner, whether it be with your friend, your family. And I feel like it's time to just stand up and be your full happy self, as happy as you could be. So I have some other questions, but we'll get into that later. So what let's go.
All right. Where we going?
We're gonna go with, do you love yourself? And what does that mean?
Okay. I want to say just to throw out there its framework, at least for me, and hopefully this is helpful, that God is love. I think that becomes an absolute truth that all of us will be wise to build on, to embrace. You can't really embrace your journey of self love without that absolute truth, right?
Mm,
Because as humans, when we were created to need love. So love is not a want. Love is not something that we just happen to say, well, I need it. If you want to give it to me. No, it's a need that our very existence says when God created us, he created us with love in mind, right? So I think that becomes a point, like knowing why you were created becomes important. And
mhm.
because that ties into your purpose.
Right.
I think when we start talking about who we are as people, and if you don't know why God created you, then you can often be manipulated to do other things that you might not need to be doing. Like, for example, a refrigerator is meant to keep things cold. If I
Right.
was trying to bake a pie, I wouldn't put it in a refrigerator
Right.
because I know the purpose of the refrigerator. And so that's why kind of going into when love helps you know when you know who you are and who's you are. It gives you the framework of knowing that if that's not what I was made for, you don't compromise on being something that you're not. The refrigerator is cool with being a refrigerator. It's not, it didn't ask to be the oven. And a lot of us
Right.
out here trying to be ovens when we were creating refrigerators, and we're getting upset because we weren't meant to warm things up. We were meant to cool things off.
Gotcha.
Right. And so when we talk about love and what that actually, looks like, self-love is achieving the full potential of what you were created to be, who you were created to be. I think that that's a great play. It's filled with, I would say, the space, right? I think it's important for us to know, as people, we were meant to take up space.
Okay.
Oftentimes, as people, sometimes we can live in a whole big, beautiful home, but live in a closet. And so because we are afraid to take up room, we're afraid to take up space. So the closet often represents hiding in our life, because a part of us loving other people and loving ourselves is to expose ourselves to other things that we might not be ready for, or might not know that we need, or might not know what that actually looks like. So it's safer in the closet, because most people ain't going to expect anything out of me in the closet. But the reality is, we were meant to take up space, and love lets us do that. Go ahead.
Excuse me, 1 minute. Keep going.
Okay. And so I think part of it is knowing that you were meant to take up space, and self-love allows you the opportunity to do so, right? And so I actually forgot your original question, but I think that that's a great place to start. That self-love includes making space and giving yourself permission to take up space. And sometimes people say, "Oh, you too much for me." Well, maybe because your space is too little.
Ooh.
And that's okay, because sometimes I'm a whole lot. I'm a lot of stuff, and it might not work for you, and that is okay. But sometimes we let people push us into a closet because they can't handle our space.
Ebony, do you have a question?
I do. And this is something that I used to do that I recognize. Whenever I would speak to, like, in a relationship kind of context, and I would kind of preface, I know I'm a lot. I know I'm a lot to handle. Like, I'm putting this disclaimer on myself.
Right.
I know I can be too much. And then I had to come to terms with, I'm not really doing anything wrong. I'm just being me. Where does this come from, that I feel like I have to put a disclaimer on myself,
Right.
where I have to preface, oh, I know I can be a lot sometimes. Like, of course, we don't know each other like that, but what do you think? You know what I mean? What do you think that someone that may be else thinking the same thing? Where should we start with that?
Knowing it's okay that you're a lot.
Okay.
And embracing, listen, I'm a lot, and I know that. And it may not work for you. And granted, what does a lot mean in that space with someone? So being able to, understand what that looks like. But oftentimes when people say that they're a lot, it just means I come with a lot of things that may be, that makes up who I am. A lot for me means I got a lot of personality. Right. I'm just over the top kind of girl. And so if you're more one of those people that's black and white, well, my color may offend you, because I love color, right? And so part of that is actually knowing it, but I'm not doing it. For a long time, I didn't embrace who I was as a person. So part of me, and I'm on this journey with everyone else, learning to love oneself, because self-love is a journey.
Right.
It's something that I think every day that we get up, that we try to get one step closer to what that actually looks like. But it was a time in my life that I didn't love myself, and I allowed myself to be conformed to what other people's images of me should be.
And I think for me, if I'm just gonna be honest about that, I agree with Ebony, because I think for me, my a lot is time. Like, I have a lot going on in my life, right? So, and before I had a lot going in my life, I was just like a force, because there's things I want, there's places I want to go, and I really don't like the word no. And so you got to deal with that attitude. I am spoiled. So if I don't get what I want, I will throw a tantrum today. It's not a problem. But the thing is,
that's another episode, y'all. We'll talk about
I know it is. But the thing is this: when you have many things that make up who you are, and you're you're in your lane, you have to have someone, or you have to have enough self-love for yourself to know that what you're doing is you're doing the best thing for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't worry about what somebody else thinks if it's too much or anything like that. When you start to dumb yourself down, that's when you lose a lot, I think.
And I think sometimes we can, depending, like hear me tell you, I do know I'm extra with extra sauce. And I can't do too much sometimes. Like I get that. So part of that is recognizing that. But often it can be, why am I doing it? So
Right.
even for me, when I recognize, okay, what are you doing too much for? And it could be because I'm not getting the attention I need. And so sometimes doing too much means I'm acting out.
Uh-huh.
You know, I'm attention seeking. So you have to be able to determine what that a lot looks like and why you're doing a lot, because sometimes people do need a lot of attention, and that becomes something up front. You need to know to listen. I'm a hands-on kind of person. You know, I need, emotional. I need you to be emotionally available. That may be a lot for someone. I need you to be emotionally present. That may be a lot for people, but it's better to put your truth out there early. Because most of the time we kind of wait, and then we get into the situation, and then we kind of want to tell them then. No, it's best to put it up there up front. This is who I am. This is what I come with. Now, granted, I do believe in some things, depending on the relationship, it is okay to change based on the relationship. If you see need to change, I'm not changing. You're telling me to. I'm because I see that that's the best thing for me. And if I love you, I will change for you.
Right. If as long as you being your authentic self.
Right.
And then if you're in something where you see that it's servicing you, then you can make those necessary changes.
Well,
I do understand that. Like if you're a person who usually just shoots off, and and then you have somebody that says, look, I'm not about to get loud with you. You're not about to get loud with me. That does say, you know what? I don't have to do this. Let me approach this differently. And it may be something you've always wanted to do, but you was in something that made you just scream from a bullhorn.
Right. And I think self-love is a personal journey.
Mm-hmm.
I think that becomes something that's really important. I think for us to keep in mind that you don't need anyone else's approval. You don't need anyone else's permission to love yourself. As Coach Prime, Deion Sanders says, it's personal. So I think in this season in our lives, you need to make it personal. And you don't need to be apologizing for making it personal, because if you're going to love yourself, it is about you as a person.
Correct.
And the reality is we have not been making it personal enough. And so guess what? It is personal. And so if you see me out here doing things that are good for me, that's well for me, that's making me better, it's personal. And I think that we have to personalize our journey and quit making and wanting other people to give us permission to love ourselves. When you're an adult, listen, as a child, understanding it's a place for what that looks like. But as an adult, I don't need your permission to do what's best for me.
Okay.
I don't need your approval to do what's best for me. And sometimes we're looking for that. And the reality is people will use that against you, because when you are operating in self-love, you're operating in the truest form of yourself. Who you were created to be, right? And part of self-love is also loving the parts of me that I might think is unlovable. Part of self-love is embracing all of me and not pieces of me, because you can bring your whole self into a relationship. So part of self-love is loving the younger version of you. Because I believe as individuals, especially as adults, when we enter spaces with other people, we take our little girl and our little boy with us. And so sometimes when we're in a situation and we may be throwing a tantrum, it really might not be the adult. It may be my little girl who didn't get what she needed when she was a certain age. And so because of that, she's showing up in that moment. And so one of the things that I believe is I am going to address it here. Like, you know what? I'm noticing that this person has regressed. And so this person is maybe responding like a 10-year-old. What does this 10-year-old individual need? It's helpful inside relationships if people can do it for you too, but for you yourself. Yeah. What do you need? The other part is oftentimes we disown parts of us that we don't like. We are embarrassed by parts of us that we don't like. We're ashamed of that. Self-love means I accept all of me.
I was going to say self-acceptance.
Yes, that's very important, because part of disowning yourself is rejecting yourself. Part of being embarrassed and ashamed by yourself is abandoning who you are. So part of me is I accept all of me, things that I do well, things that I don't do well, my flaws, things that I blossom in, because a lot of times we don't want people to see that. But that's a part of loving who you are, is accepting the parts of you that sometimes, some days, listen, they just not the most lovable, but that's when you need love the most. So I think that that's a big piece of it, is learning to love the younger you, that inner child, because when you start doing that, what you'll realize is that you need to forgive yourself.
That was my other question that I have on here. Do you forgive yourself?
The highest form, one of the highest forms of self-love is forgiveness.
I have that question on here because I think a lot of times when things happen and or you put you're in certain positions, you feel like, oh my God, I did this. So now this is what I'm reaping. How could I have done this? And you don't forgive yourself.
Right. And the difference when you do that too is you become critical. And self-love is constructive. It builds up. It's not critical. Criticalness tears you down. And so part of forgiveness says people are normally easier or able to forgive other people, but when it comes to self, it's harder normally to forgive yourself and easier to forgive others. But forgiveness is I'm choosing to let it go. And just like self-love is a choice. I choose to love myself. I choose to go ahead. What do you want? What's up?
I had another question. Do you stand up for yourself?
So asserting yourself, I'm guessing, and so it depends on in what form you're talking about, because the first person you need to stand up to and for is your younger version of who you are. Okay. And so that's why you need to do a lot of time with yourself and spending time with you and saying, you know what? Because some things ain't worth standing up for. Some things is letting people go on their way and thinking whatever they want to think, because you know what? That requires energy for me to change your mind when you didn't want your mind changed. So it becomes important for you to know what the truth is. And if other people care to come alongside you and learn that, that's one thing. But I am not sitting up here asking people, waving people down to get them to say, hey, I want you to hear me, because that's another part of it. Most of the time, if that's happening, that person didn't feel heard growing up. And so now you can come over, it can be over the top and you're really loud and you're really boisterous and you're really throwing, your words around. It can be attacking because you didn't feel heard. And so now you went to the other extreme and you're using your words to attack, to hurt, to belittle, to cut, and to do all those things. But what you're really saying is, I just want somebody to hear me. I just want someone to listen to me. And the first person to listen to is yourself. We get upset when other people ignore us. But the question is, how many times have you ignored yourself? How many times?
Well, because I know a lot of people can put their faults on other people, won't take, responsibility for their actions, and they put it on others. So how could you tell somebody to start to the point where when you get ready to do this, like what can you do to just check yourself first?
Set boundaries. That's a good place to start. Start setting boundaries, identifying what boundaries do I need to set. Another thing may be looking at your experiences, looking at your journey up until this point, right? Starting to connect the dots, looking at all the different experiences that you've had, not necessarily to go back and relive them, but to help draw a linear line to what is taking place. Because that's when you can get a bigger picture and become more objective in what you're working with. Sometimes we ignore, we suppress, and what we normally suppress, we ignore. And if you're suppressing it, you're not addressing it.
So that's it manifests in other ways.
And so it'll show up in various ways. And so part of it is, this is an individual journey. And so, and it's, listen, mama might not mean to do it that way. Daddy might didn't mean to, whoever your caregiver was, but yet it still happened. Right. So you need to connect the dots for yourself, because sometimes we can assign false meaning to something because we didn't have the full story at that time when it happened, right? And so when you go back and you start connecting them and start looking at the effects of them, because sometimes it's not what happened. It's a great book titled Forgiving What You Can't Forget.
Yeah.
And it also is accompanied by a journal. And one of the things that the author says in the book is sometimes it's easier for someone to get over what someone done to them. It's harder to get over the effects of what that person done to them.
Right.
And so I think
how they made you feel.
Yes. What was the things that was going on? What did that mean to you? When that happened, to you. And so it can have many different parts to it, right? And forgiveness is really weighty in so many ways, and trying to sort through what that actually looks like. And we often try to do it by ourselves. And I believe that it's something difficult to do on your own. And because I believe forgiveness is a spiritual matter. Mm-hmm. And I believe you have to seek, to me, the Holy Spirit's help to help you with it. Because if not, we'll just keep getting manipulated. We'll keep going in cycles, because people will often too use situations against you. And it comes to, I thought you said you let that go. You're going to keep bringing that back up again.
Yes.
And part of that, well, then you can say, well, did that person really care about me? Did that person really understand where I was coming from? And sometimes you have to be okay with, people are not going to get it. The question is, it's not so much, because we're talking about self-love. It's not about, do people get it? Do you get it? And with that, going back to your question, and that means you have to learn when to create windows in your life, walls, and doors. Some people, because windows and doors represent access. When certain things happen in your life, people don't deserve access anymore. Or they may need limited access, right? So you have to determine what that actually looks like. And it is okay, because walls are important, right? Because a house is not held up without walls. So Correct. People can still be a wall in your life and be significant. They might not just be a door or a window, and you keep wondering why the relationship keeps happening, it's not working. It's because you keep giving them access, and they know they no longer deserve it, right? And so a part of self-love is knowing who to give access to. Everybody don't deserve keys to your life. And if you passed out your keys, you know what? Some people try to go get them back. Listen, don't even go get them back. Just change the locks and keep on.
Change the locks. Change the locks.
Yeah, is it going to cost you? Yes, it'll cost you to get the locks changed, but it's also going to cost you not changing it. You just have to determine what matters more, which cost you want to pay, right? But it becomes important to recognize when you're on this journey of self-love, some people don't need access no more. And it is okay to revoke people's privileges.
Okay. All right. Ebony?
Woo!
But how do you, oh gosh, revoking privileges, like, that is wonderful, because you're right. Everybody doesn't deserve access to your life, and you do need to be your own filter. But sometimes you just don't know. Sometimes people are loyal to a fault, and that just snowballs.
It does.
What do you do in those situations? Like, I know prayer is very big, I know that, but what do you do when you need to really remove something? Because if you have something in your life that is blocking your self-love, like, how do you start to remove that?
So I'm by default, I'm a loyal person. Like, I'm a loyal person to the very end. Like, I'm talking about the car can be on fire and I'm going to still stay in it and just like, okay, we're going to be in this together.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. That's how far I go. And I realize, or I have come to realize, you need boundaries and limits around your loyalty, because most people that are loyal, they'll want to see it to the end, because if it don't work out, you often blame yourself for something that you think that you didn't do. Like, I didn't do enough, or I can keep doing it. So sometimes, because people that remain loyal often don't like to give up. And when you're in a relationship with someone and they know that about you, you're not going to give up. I can keep coming at you with different angles, and I know you're going to still try to stick it out, and you're going to try to figure it out, because you don't want to give up. And part of that for me, the reason why I normally didn't do it was because giving up meant to be abandoned. And I didn't want someone to feel like I was abandoning them, like I've been abandoned in my life. So I stayed even if it hurt me. I didn't realize how foolish that was at the time. But part of that is understanding I can be loyal, but people will use your loyalty against you.
Yeah.
People will literally take advantage of your loyalty, and you have to learn what that looks like, and even stopping and asking yourself the questions, hey, how did you just feel about that situation? And then looking at, is it reciprocated? Like you are loyal to that, but is loyalty one-sided in the relationship? Because if that's the case, and one way you can find that out is to remove some of the stuff you're doing. Just pull back a little bit. If you're the one initiating the calls, initiating hanging out, initiating whatever, just stop being an initiator for a minute. And see what happens. That's a great place to start.
That's right? A great place to start.
Stop being an initiator. That's all you gotta do. Just fall back a second and see. Because what you'll realize, the reason why the relationship is lasted this long is because you've been carrying it.
Oh Lord. Evan, I'm gonna let you have that. I'm gonna go on, child. Go on.
Okay, so I have 4 types of what underneath the self-love, right? So it's self-awareness, self-worth, self-esteem, and of course, the most ever popular one, self-care. If you could rank them, if you could rank them, what do you think is probably, like you said, you already acknowledged you lack self-love. If you could rank them, where would you say you would start with?
You said awareness, esteem, self-care, and what was the last one?
Worth and self-care.
Oh, that's a good question. A good question, because I'm torn between top two. I'm going to go with self-worth.
Okay.
Because that's what I go with. If you don't, the second one was going to be a close second, the awareness of your worth. But I would say the worth, because you need to know, because worth and value is not the same thing. And oftentimes in relationships, we let people decide what we're worth.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And the reality is I don't have a worth. I'm priceless. And so that becomes important. So that's a great place to start, is do you know what you're worth? Because if you put yourself on a discounted rack, then that's what I'm going to pay for. But the last time I checked, anything of value, any designer, they going to keep their price what their price is, whether you can pay it or not.
Right.
If you walk in any designer store, and if you can't afford it, they don't sit up here and say, well, what can you afford? Baby, you're going to walk right on up out of there and go about your business, go wherever the store you can afford. That's the same thing with us. We're designers. We're walking around here as masterpieces, and we're selling ourselves for cheap. So the reality is, if you don't want to pay full price for who I am, somebody will. But I'm not going to sit up here and give you 50% off so you can go pay 50% for somebody else.
Oh, girl.
Maybe if you pay full price for what you have, you ain't going to have nothing left over to give nobody else anyway.
Let me get a collection plate.
So I would say worth, knowing your worth, knowing who you are, whose you are, and not ever negotiating that. It may be things you negotiate in life, but your worth is non-negotiable.
I got that.
You need to know that forever. Your worth is non-negotiable, because listen, you are worthy of love. You deserve love. That is something that's owed you. It's not, and you shouldn't have to do anything, jump through any loops or hoops to be loved. If I have to do things for you to love me, is that love? Because then now that's not conditional. I should just be loved for who I am. If I cannot, I should just be loved because I'm inhaling and exhaling. You need to be loved because you're inhaling and exhaling. If I have to do something for you to love me, is that really love initially? Because I think what you were saying earlier, Millicent, love is sacrificial. And love will put his money where his mouth is. I'm going to show you, because to me, before I ever told Jesus I loved him, he showed me first. And so if somebody in your life say they love you, ask them to show you. And if they don't want to show you, then is it love? And it doesn't have to be, I'm saying whatever they may look like.
Right.
But a lot of times we go off of a feeling.
Mhm.
And we can get ourselves in some dangerous situations because he never showed you anything. She never showed you anything. You was just operating on what you felt. And feelings are fickle, right? And so love is going to be action oriented all day, every day.
That's what I was gonna say. Love is an action word.
And so
It's
that's
an
why
action
going to
word.
knowing your worth,
Mhm.
and part of it is, and I'm not going to be, everybody is not going to pay for me. Just like everybody is not, wearing certain clothing or carrying certain bags or whatever, because for them, it might not be worth it for them. For someone else, it may be worth it. So, but at the end of the day, no designer went and asked the public, hey, what y'all think it's worth?
Mm.
They put what it was worth on that tag when you go in the store, and either you want it or you don't. And that's the same way you should be in your life. Either you want me or you don't. And granted, it doesn't have, I'm saying granted with some other things that may go there, but on the surface of it, if you have to conform, if you have to change who you are to be loved in a relationship, then you have already reduced yourself in their relationship. And most of the time, because low-hanging fruit is the easiest fruit to grab.
Oh, girl, come on.
You are so right.
So you were just available. He didn't really love you. You just answered the phone when I called. You wasn't really the pig. You was just available because I didn't have nobody at the time. You was just low-hanging fruit. You just happened to be walking by, and and we just started a conversation. I just liked how you talked to me. You just really was able to stimulate my intellect. That's all. You was just low-hanging fruit.
At the moment.
At the moment. You was just something easy to grab. You was nothing to work for.
Okay.
Because love is work. And if you love me,
love is work.
It's work. It's hard work. You heard me? It's hard work.
It is. It's hard work.
It's a good work, but it's hard work.
It is definitely something you have to want to clock into every day.
You're choosing it.
You have to choose
it every day.
You have to choose it every day.
And love is like salary. When you on salary at your job, you don't get overtime for working extra hours. You just work because you work them. Now, when people are hourly, people get it, but the benefits are different when you're salary versus when you're hourly too, right? And so that becomes important in your life. Are you hourly and they salary? Or they salary and you hourly? And so maybe that's where the disconnect is y'all not even on the same pay period. Y'all not even working together on that. Because while you working overtime, your salary is already capped, but they clocking in the extra benefits of working over in their relationship, but they ain't done nothing extra. They ain't done nothing more than that you have done. So I think that it becomes important to know that, though, to know, hey, what we doing? And if we can't
because there's a benefit, they see the benefit in being with you.
Right.
And if you don't see the benefit, because that goes back to your worth.
Yes.
As long as you don't see the benefit, I'm going to always capitalize off of what you don't see.
That is so true. And that's where the hurt comes in.
Yes.
That's where the minimizing yourself comes in.
Or wanting someone to want you. And so you're like, well, you know what? Let me put myself out there. Let me do this. Let me do my hair a certain way. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with changing your look if you want to change it. But if you're changing it and hoping someone else is going to recognize you, then if I just recognize you for your looks, and no, I don't care about your heart. I don't care about what's on your mind. All I care about is what you look like. And we know that looks, that's an outer appearance.
And I understand that. I totally understand that, because I had a situation like that, and I went and got on these weight systems and everything, because it was like, you just get, not even a lot of weight, just a little weight. And it was like, just crazy. And I was like, why am I doing this? Because I can wear all my clothes and I look great in them. So you're going to have to just get used to it, or we're going to have to figure something else out. Mm-hmm. But it took me a while to get to that point.
For sure. And I think most women, because one of the I think struggles that the women have is through body image.
Yeah.
Or we often body shame, and that's not a form of self-love, either, because sometimes people can be really cruel with saying, ain't nobody gonna love you and you a big girl.
Or
Ain't
you keep
nobody
a big girl.
Ain't nobody gonna want you because you sticks and bones. So you automatically connect.
Yeah.
I have to look away to be loved.
Mhm.
And so you have a lot of people, and that's why the cosmetic industry is billions of dollars, $1 billion industry, is because everybody out here wants to look the part, because we don't want to be punished, because early on you learn, if I do something and someone don't like it, I'm gonna get in trouble for it.
Right.
And so you just naturally don't want to be punished for it. So I'd rather conform to what you want me to be than for you not to be here. So if you want me to be this, if you want me to dress like this, if you want me to act like this, I'm gonna do it because I don't want you to leave me.
Yeah. And then when people do things like that, they end up leaving anyway. Just like Jackie O, she felt like she needed to do these things and it went wrong, and she's no longer with us.
And you look at her body already on the outside.
She was wonderful. Like, she was great.
But I would have loved to have had a conversation where, just even talk to sis and be like, what was going on within yourself.
What else did you want to do?
But it can be because the pressure is real, though. People can put a lot of pressure on you to look a certain way, and because of how you may feel about yourself, you might, because you want to be, because the reality is we want to be accepted. The reality is we do want to be liked. I'm saying that's just what that is. And sometimes we might go through extreme measures of doing that, right? But when you really know, hey, you know what? I am beautiful as I am.
Right.
And because the other part, like you were saying, is then you end up being resentful. I did all this for you, and you didn't even say nothing. I done lost 20 pounds, and you ain't said nothing.
Right.
I sat up here and colored my hair the way you said you wanted to be colored, and you ain't said nothing. You talking about you wanted me to cook you this meal. You ain't said, I'm doing all of this stuff, and you ain't even recognized anything that I have done. And so then what does that mean? Then you've done it, number one, for that person to recognize it, but then on the other hand, they're not even doing anything for you. So they got this whole list of what they want you to do, and because you're so focused on making sure they good, you ain't even paying attention over here. They ain't checked out one box on your list.
Ooh.
So let's roll into self-esteem.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we got a good, a sturdy line on knowing your worth. Let's roll into how can you, because we talked about body image, and that's a great place to start. How can you, build your self-esteem, and regarding body image or any other thing, but self-esteem does start with how we view ourselves and look at ourselves in the mirror.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Self-esteem is, for a definition, it's the estimation of your worth. How much do you believe you're worth? What is because your esteem is, like you said, like your view of self. It's basically when you look at yourself in the mirror, what do you say to yourself? One of the assignments I give my clients to do sometimes is to stand in front of the mirror naked. And that's often one of the hardest assignments for them to do, because most people, when they stand in front of the mirror and look at themselves naked, they pick everything negative about themselves.
Everything.
And whatever you see. And so that's a good place. You know what? What do you see when you look in the mirror? Who do you see when you look in the mirror? Because that's a great place to start with self-esteem.
Because I can see that being an activity that you could be great when you get yourself together. Hair, face, outfit. But when you are naked and you get to thinking, oh, this is wrong. This is drooping. This is too big. Why is it like this? That is where the self-esteem starts dwindling down.
Yes. Because
what do we do to lift it up?
We view ourselves.
So, but part of it is accepting yourself in your naked form. That's where I was starting. Accepting yourself in your naked form, your naked body. Who am I without all this stuff? And so looking in the mirror at yourself and telling yourself every day, whether you have clothes on or not, I choose you. Right. I choose to love you. Even on the tough days, I am choosing you. That's a part of this, maybe through affirmations and also confessions. I confess I have not always been kind to you. I have not always, took care of you. I have not always seen you and noticed you. So some of it is you owning up to how you've treated you. And then Bam said, but you know what? I'm going to change that. A little bit at a time. I'm going to change it by what I say to you. I'm going to change it by how I spend time with you. I'm going to change it by what I feed you. And I don't just mean food is important, but what am I feeding you mentally and emotionally and spiritually? What am I letting other people feed me? A great way too, I think, to build your self-esteem is through purification. Sometimes you have to learn to purify and cleanse some of the junk out your life. And that can be your mind. It can be some people. But I think part of purification, it can look like taking a camping trip, like just getting away from it all. It can look like, going hiking. Purification can look like going to a cabin, reading the Bible, praying, sitting in silence.
Yes.
Can be purification. So part of it is purifying, cleansing yourself of the narratives that exist in your mind.
And I will say, like, I do that. I sit quietly when I have to make moments, and there are things that come, like you hear, you get things out of your head, and like, why am I thinking about that? Like that is crazy. So I understand that. That makes a lot of sense. I love that.
And asking yourself, how did you get here? When you're in the mirror talking, how did you get? I think Deborah Cox saying nobody was supposed to be here. Like, how did you get here? Like, don't really answering that question. How did I get here? Because sometimes
that's a homework assignment for everybody in this thing. Ask that. I'm gonna write that down.
How did you get here? That's right.
How did I get here? And what you will find out, here can mean like this place. Because one thing is for sure, our mouth is a vehicle. Our mouth is a direct correlation to our destiny. Some of the reason we're where we are is because we spoke it into existence.
Correct.
Or we accepted what someone else spoke over our life. And you have to learn how to, because that's another part of knowing your worth. You have to rebuke things that don't line up with who you're called to be. Hey, you know what? That don't fit for me. That ain't me. And I'm not going to accept it. I'm not going to let it take root. I'm not going to let you put that on me. You have to learn how to push stuff out the way. It's like, no. I'm not going to let that come into my space, because I say I'm reformed because I struggle most of my life with low self-esteem. And still to this day, I have to get up every day and choose to fight. And for some people that may be in that space like me, I'm not going to take it lying down, because I know if I go there, if I end up in that place, it takes me so much longer. And I know that version of me when I'm in that place, I'm telling you, that's a person that's crying out for help. That's a person that becomes desperate. That's a person that will engage in self-harm. And I don't necessarily mean by necessarily cutting and all those kind of things, but I started talking negative to myself. I started self-sabotaging. I started just letting anything come in my life just as a form of comfort, to me, just to tell myself so I can feel better. So every day I get up and I fight. And some days a fight is harder, but I've made a promise to myself, I'm not going down without a fight. And so I think the same thing with self-love. You have to choose to fight for it every day. Some days may be a little bit easier. Some days may not be, but you have to know that this is a fight. And guess what? And I fight to win. I don't fight to lose.
Right.
And so it depends on how you show up. And guess what? Because I need you, because the other part is I've learned to talk back to my self-esteem, because there's some things I've learned about me. It's some things that I didn't know at first that I do know now. So some of it too, when you're talking about building yourself up, is learning to purify yourself and removing some of those things in your life that's not serving you. This does not mean you well. That's not helping you to grow and to blossom and to flourish. And sometimes that can be long-lasting relationships. But you know what? You got to be very careful who you attach yourself to, because not everybody wants to see you win. Not everybody is happy for you to see you in spaces that you're in, and you can apologize. And often people can have imposter syndrome. You feel guilty for where you are. even though you work to be in that place, but everybody else around you talking about, oh, you done changed, or you thinking you too good.
Yeah.
And so guess what? Because a chicken will always want an eagle to stay on the ground, because an eagle can do something a chicken can't do. An eagle can fly.
Well, with that being said, I heard you say attachments, right? So we're gonna get ready and end this conversation, but we're gonna ask if you would just give us a little prayer, Alice, before we go. And we will be back, you all, not next Monday, but the following Monday.
And so before you pray, just one thing I will ask for you to give to the people, right? Because self-love is very, very important. Give us a book, give us an assignment, give us a task. You know, we're a task-oriented people.
Because I got the app last week and I absolutely love it. My whole attitude is changing day by day. I can see it changing.
Well, wonderful.
Yes.
One of the things, I think, asking yourself the question, how do you get here? It's another book. It's titled, it's actually for women, but it's self-love. It's a self-love workbook.
Okay.
And so I would encourage, to get the book, but I would also say too, if you're in a place that you're able to invest in that right now, just start writing.
Okay.
This is a good place. Just start tracking. Just start gathering the different things that you actually just notice about yourself, and sometimes even asking other people, that you trust too. Just start gathering information about yourself. So just consider. I want you to take an investigative approach.
Taking self-inventory.
Yeah. So just take So part of it is asking people in your life questions like, "What do you see when you see me?" Ask and now be ready. Now, when you start asking these questions, now be ready, because you might be people think you amazing, and they may have to hit you with the 1, 2, 3 and the gut punch, and you might not be ready for that.
But you want the truth. You want to be honest.
Yes, so asking those people in your life that you know are gonna give you the truth. Don't ask people that's gonna tell you what you want to hear. Ask those people.
So, what do you see when you see me?
What do you see when you see me? But also asking yourself that question in the mirror. What do you see when you see me? What do I see when I'm looking myself in the eyes? Because it said the eyes are the windows to the soul.
Yeah.
What do I see in my soul when I look through my eyes?
And be honest, like do those answers come from just a multitude of what you're thinking about, what you've been through? Like, because a lot of people sometimes, I mean, you can say do that exercise, but sometimes people may not be in the mindset to just really look in the mirror and just say, what is it that I see? Because they could feel like it's not something that will help them.
That's the self-awareness. And we have to have a certain level of self-awareness. When you look in the mirror, you know when you lying to yourself.
Right. Real quick, Alice, could you give us the name of that app last week? It's
How We Feel.
How We Feel.
Mm-hmm.
And it is.
And what was the name of the book in the journal too?
Self-love workbook for women, and the author is Megan Logan.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so, and then it gives you like assignments. It gives you information, to use. And so part of it is using the information that you learn. Don't just get it, implement it in your life. And it may be just one thing. And so part of that is just speaking kind to yourself. That may be your goal. Is today I am going to speak kind to me.
Right.
Throughout the day, I'm going to tell myself, even if I'm in a tough moment, I'm going to put my hand over my heart and I'm going to tell myself in that moment, I love you. Letting that wash over you. No, I love you. You are loved. You are worthy of love.
Mm-hmm.
I love you. Like in tough, like putting your hand, like literally being still, grounding yourself, because love will ground you. Telling yourself that. Even when other people may be around you, telling yourself, I love you. I choose you. I'm proud of you. Yes, what you did, it wasn't okay. But that don't mean I changed my love for you because you did something that wasn't okay. I love you. And I'll end with this before I pray. Is Oscar Wilde has a quote that says, be yourself. Everyone else is taken.
Oh,
be yourself.
Right. And I say that I I always say I can't be anybody but me. I can't.
But so many people want to be clones, but
Yeah.
I hope people show up as their true version. I hope today, tonight, when you show up in the world and show up in the workplace and show up in your life, I want you to at least show up, because it's a book that says we only show 15 minutes of our true self a day. I want you to practice at least. And some people show less than that. I want you to practice and be aware, when did I show my true self today? What part of me was true today? Or did I sit up here and did I live all of my whatever 8 waking hours faking it? Okay, so let us pray, shall we? Father, how we thank you, we love you. We thank you for this opportunity to come and to have these conversations, much needed conversations. We thank you that you are the God that loves us, that cares about us. And Lord, someone that may be listening, may be struggling with what love looks like. Lord, I pray, Lord, right now that they will get a newness of what love is. I pray that someone learns today that they are lovable, no matter what they have done, no matter where they have gone, no matter who they've done it with, no matter how long that they have been in their place. Because love is patient and love is kind, Lord. Love is sacrificial. Love keeps no records of wrong, Lord. Love suffers long. And I just pray, Lord, right now, someone just by this conversation will know that they are seen and that they're cared for. I pray that we will do the tough things. I pray that we will be courageous, Lord, and do the work, because it is a hard work. But Lord, it's also a healing work. It's a transformative work. And Lord, we owe it to ourselves to love ourselves. May we be better versions of ourselves each and every day. Lord, may we be at peace with knowing it's okay to choose us. May we be at peace with knowing that we don't have to be everything for everybody. May we be at peace with knowing it is okay to rest. It is okay to just sit and be at peace and within yourself. Lord, I pray on today that somebody will embrace what it means to love. I pray that someone will begin to be an example of what love is. Maybe be that example to people in our life. If people have not experienced it, may they begin to experience it through us. Will you please continue to watch over us and keep us, and to be the example that you have given us, because we know people will know you through our love. May we spread more love, because that's what the world needs, is love. The world needs love, and may we be that love that the world needs. We thank you for who you are and what you've done. We thank you for this podcast, Lord, for such a time as this. We pray that you be pleased and you be blessed and be glorified most of all. It's in Jesus' name we ask it all. Amen.
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 I'd like to thank you, ladies, for being here. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much, Alice. You really enlighten us, and I really hope the people that are in the chat got what they needed or heard something that touched them. And I love doing this. I love having these conversations because they are needed.
Mm-hmm.
They're very much needed. And I just appreciate you being a part of this. So, like I said, we won't be here next Monday, but the following Monday we will be back. And I think that's October 23rd. So we will see you on October 23rd for Love and Relationships with Ebony the Fly Aunt Cooks and Alice Ward. Thank you all for being here. It's your girl Millie Chun, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye, everybody.